The Greek Prime Minister has said he was confident his country would return to growth in 2014 after a 6-year recession, and pledged to push for an easing of austerity measures. Antonis Samaras said on Saturday that most of the efforts to get the country out of the crisis have been completed and that revenue will exceed spending in 2013, excluding debt repayment. Greece is turning the page on 6 years of recession and the economy is becoming competitive, said the Conservative Prime Minister, who has headed a coalition government with the Socialist Party since June last year. Last year the international media were all talking about the Grexit, from the eurozone, but now that has been replaced by the Grecovery. The Conservative Prime Minister, who came to power amid economic turmoil, said that the Greece's economy by 2020 will reach pre-crisis, and probably higher, levels of prosperity. Samaras said his optimism was fueled by data that showed the economy shrank less than expected in the first half of 2013 and by what he termed a record rise in the number of tourists, which could add more than €11 billion, $14.43 billion, directly, and €30 billion, $39.35 billion, indirectly, into the economy. His comments, in a speech at a trade fair in the northern city of Thessaloniki where about 17,000 people protested against the government's austerity policies, came amid signs that the extremely deep recession in Greece is easing. Structural reforms. Revised data for gross domestic product in the second quarter of the year shows this week that the Greek economy shrank by 3.8% on a 12-month comparison. This was far better than the initial estimate, which showed the economy shrinking by 4.6%. The government has forecast the economy will shrink by 4.3% this year before returning to growth in 2014. During the first 7 months of 2013, the surplus reached €1.1 billion, $1.45 billion, he said, adding this would enable the country to negotiate with its creditors, the European Union, EU, and the International Monetary Fund, IMF. Greece has received massive rescue funding, tied to tough conditions, from the EU and the IMF to help it overcome a debt crisis which threatened the eurozone. However, the resulting structural reforms, including an overhaul of its public sector and its tax system, have proved unpopular. Samaras promised no further austerity measures would be introduced, saying the economy cannot take them anymore. Debt levels will be manageable. Greece has respected its commitments. Now, the creditors must also respect what was agreed, he added. The EU and the IMF recently praised the Greek government's progress in turning the economy around, but bemoaned delays to a program of privatization and reform, and the fact that the country will likely need further aid in 2014 and 2015 amounting to about €10 billion.